Single by choice. That's what they say. They say single by choice. But in reality, the men have walked away. The men are rejecting them. Specifically, the leftist women, the liberal women. The liberal women are the loneliest and most unhappy women out there because they are the giant walking red flags that the men have walked away from. I can't wait to tell you more about it and show you some of these women that are supposedly walking away from you. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Okay, so here's an example of a woman that claims she's rejecting all of you. You tell me in the comments if you see her one day having a successful, long-lasting relationship with the types of men that are left over after men like you.
So I've said on numerous occasions that I wouldn't date a conservative man or a right-wing man, and let me tell you why. Number one, I'm going to be a teacher. If you, as a conservative, do not think that teachers should be paid more, you burnt. I'm not going to date you, bro. All right? Number two, since I'm going to be a teacher, I'm more than likely going to have either the child of an undocumented migrant or an undocumented migrant in my classroom at some point in time. And I don't want you to call ICE on them. Thanks. Number three, again, about me being a teacher. There's this thing that's been happening, and it's where schools are used for target practice. And I want you to be on my side when it comes to stricter laws on gun control. Thanks. Number four, we're just going to raise our kids completely different.
Got that right. Got that right. It's a big reason why they're like, yeah, I don't see you as wife and mother material. Thank you very much. As if conservative men are trying to date a woman like this. But anyway, there's more.
If my child at the ripe age of 6 years old says to me that they identify as the opposite gender, I'm going to listen to that child. We are going to have conversations, and I'm going to do what's best for the child, and I will put the child in therapy, in, gender-specific therapy, to have that child work some things out before taking any drastic measures, but I will listen to that child. You will not. That's the difference. Number five, if we have a child and they happen to be intersex, I am not going to let the doctors do unnecessary surgery on our child to have our child conform to gender-specific stereotypes. And you will probably want that. I will let the intersex child grow up and wait to see what he, she, or they identifies as, and if they would like to go ahead with any type of surgery.
A 6-year-old. And we're just going to let the children put all the other stuff aside, but we're just going to let the children lead the household. That's not a good plan. Yeah. How is this going to pan out for her? Like if she's looking to ever at all have a successful long-term relationship, she doesn't believe in roles, anything like that. She clearly does believe in roles because she certainly believes she is going to be, seems like, head of the household. It's her way or the highway. The 6-year-old is going to, lead the way.
Okay? So when I say I don't want to date a conservative man, there's more than one reason. It's not just that you're a conservative. It's that you stand against every single thing that I am, essentially, and who I want to be and the kind of parent that I want to be. You stand against that, and I'm not okay with that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So I've said on
So funny. They act as though you're like knocking on their doors, trying to get a date with them. It's like, no, lady, no, they don't want you. They don't want you. This is embarrassing. It's embarrassing because they don't want you. Okay. You're not wife material. And you've just displayed that. But let's look at candidate number 2. Okay.
I am endlessly amused by the way that a lot of conservative young men's response to the troubles they're having when it comes to dating, because a lot of young women are realizing that they would rather not date conservative men, is to lash out with something along the lines of, oh, well, you want to be picky about who you will and won't date? You're going to be single forever with your cats. Because
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think that's true.
what they don't realize is that that prospect isn't that scary anymore. Like, maybe I will be single forever with my cats. Is that so bad? I'm single with cats right now and I'm having a great time. This is like infinitely preferable to what I imagine being married to a Republican would be like. I am endlessly amused by the way that a lot of conservative young men's response
Oh my
to
God,
the
shush.
troubles.
Oh, sorry. It's not nice to laugh. But saying that y'all are having dating problems and issues with women, it's not that you can't get a date. Well, there's a lot of men that are just rejected, but that's not the issue. Is that there's nobody dateable. And even the ones that look safe might not be. Because it's like swimming in a shark tank. Do you really want to take that bet? No. According to my TikTok research, which is painstaking, but according to that research, it seems that the women are having an issue with men on dating apps not disclosing their political beliefs. And women think that they're being secretive and what have you. And they're not able to sort of figure out where you are. And I think it's wise. I think it's wise because for a lot of you, it's not so cut and dry. It's not just, I'm part of this tribe, right? Because men aren't that way as much. But women seem to have this anxiety that they don't know what tribe you're in. They don't know if you're in the blue cult or not. So we'll let this lovely woman talk more about that. And I think you can tell, what side she goes to, and that would be to the left.
Welcome back to part 7 of How Not to Talk to Women on Dating Apps. So we have Jeff here. He noticed you omitted your political beliefs from your profile. Tell me more. Because as we've all read, men who are conservative are just not really saying anything about politics on their profile. And this was back in 2021. I asked, tell me more. I didn't ask, what are your beliefs? Are you conservative? Are you Democrat? And then he came back, I don't subscribe to anyone's ideology. I have found that this is a cop-out that men say when they're either conservative or they honestly don't care. And I don't have time for anyone who doesn't care about politics.
That doesn't mean they don't care. It means they're not in one specific tribe. They can't give you a label to then explain their worldview, right? And they know how we think. They know that it's jump to this conclusion, jump to that conclusion. And they're not going to give you that ammunition. When you give us information, you're giving us potential ammunition. And it's wise not to do that. But yeah, they'll put you in one camp and they'll say, this is what you believe, you're this, you're that, you're the other. Because remember, in 2020, if you didn't wear your mask like a good little citizen, then you were also racist. It's like, what? But that's what the left was doing. Oh, you're not wearing your mask in the grocery store like a good citizen? You're also racist and misogynist and all the other ists, isms, and obias, and you were put in this box. I can understand why men especially would be like, I am not going to put a label on anything because I am not going to allow you the ammunition to jump to a conclusion, which they will. She's already jumping to a conclusion. She's like, oh, well, he just doesn't care about politics or he's withholding it. It's like, she's already going to do that. Better that she can just make up the information than even give her stuff to, really throw back in your face. Cause like, you don't need to deal with that. You don't need to deal with it. But, crazy eyes. I don't know. Tell me if you guys see the crazy eyes. Because I'm learning how to spot them
anymore. Being able to not care about politics is extreme male privilege, and I don't have time for it. I'm not here for it. You have to have some beliefs on either side. Please, men, don't be vague on dating apps. Be real about who you are, because if you start dating someone, they're going to find out, and they're probably not going to be very happy. Welcome back to part 7 of How Not to Talk to Women on Dating Apps.
Shush.
So we have Jeff here. He noticed you omitted your political.
Couldn't get that one to shut up at all. TikTok likes to do that. They like to just keep playing the videos. Oh yeah, you see gray-haired lady? You're going to hear from her a little bit later. Yeah, because we need to see the examples of who these women are. But an article was released in the Institute for Family Studies, February 13th of this year. And it is very eye-opening, more about how these liberal women are less happy, more lonely, but why? It's written by Grant Bailey and Brad Wilcox. Ready? Ready for the tea, as the women call it? Ugh. Young liberal women are especially prone nowadays to reporting poor mental health. This was the discovery that Zach Goldberg made almost 5 years ago, poring over Pew data in the spring of 2020. Further research in 2022 found that depression had surged among liberal high school girls in the last decade and a half, and much more so for them than other high schoolers, especially conservatives. Is this ideological gap in the mental health of liberal and conservative women still present? I think yes, absolutely. And that's why these women that we've seen so far in the TikToks I've shown you, they're talking about they won't date them and as if they're in this position. But according to the research, that's a cope. Yes, new evidence from 2024 American Family Survey indicates it is. Young liberal women are markedly less satisfied with life than their conservative peers. Specifically, we found that 37% of conservative women reported being completely satisfied with life, whereas only 12% of liberal women did. There is less man hate in conservative women. I'm not saying there's none. Trust me. The trad cons have their own, problems that I can, tear apart with the way they look at men and treat men. But it's better than the types of women we just saw on TikTok. They are outwardly, aggressively, just enraged by the thought of male privilege and all the rest of it. They are less likely to see any form of role difference between men and women, let alone what those traditional values and traditional roles were. That will elicit rage in them. And yet, they're unhappy. Weird. Specifically, we found that 37% of conservative women reported being completely satisfied with life, whereas only 12% of liberal women did. Young conservative women are 3 times as likely to report being very satisfied with life compared to young liberal women. Moreover, liberal women are 2 to 3 times more likely to report they are not satisfied with their lives compared to conservative women. And consistent with previous research, the effect of ideology on young women's happiness held up to controls for age, education, race, and income. Seems like whatever they're doing over there on the left, those women, it's not working. And those are the ones that are deeper in feminism. They're the ones that will call themselves feminists. So it's strange that in all that equality, in all that strong and independent and stunning and brave, it's not making them happier. The freedom to be as degenerate as you want and to despise men, it's not making them happier. Weird. Many of the most thoughtful interpreters, like Jonathan Haidt, Jean Twenge, and Matthew Iglesias, of this ideological divide in the emotional well-being of young women, have pointed to the role that catastrophizing thinking has played in dragging down the spirits of liberal women. The idea is that taking on an overly negative view of the world and minimizing your own agency to navigate life, often inspired by social media, has taken a serious toll on young liberal women's emotional health. Now, I would say, when you think of, oh my gosh, the patriarchy, right? I'm so oppressed because the patriarchy holds me down, male privilege. You are solidifying a vision of the world where you are a constant victim. And obviously we know that it's all baloney. And yeah, social media plays a role, but social media merely backs up what they've learned in school, what movies and television have taught them, regular media, and like I said, school. Women's History Month, we got to talk all about how, women needed to be rescued from the oppression of men for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years. It sets that mindset up, and then social media just feeds it. That's because, as Iglesias put it, mentally processing ambiguous events with a negative spin is just what depression is. They're going to see it everywhere. They're going to see male privilege and the patriarchy and the fact that you're all predators. They're going to see it everywhere. And then they're going to tell you that they're rejecting conservative men. They're only going to pick weak men. They're going to pick men who do not challenge them in any way. And I don't mean that in an aggressive way. I mean, I think with friendships and relationships, you should. There should be, you bring out the best in each other. They don't want, because they're so afraid of you are going to control them and you're going to have power over them and they're going to be chained up in the kitchen and they're going to be a baby factory. They're just an incubator, right? They're so easily triggered because that catastrophe is just looming. Any minute now, we could be the Handmaid's Tale. Like, no. But like I said, media, right? They go dressed up like that for their protests, like the Handmaid's Tale. And by the way, that's a mini series based on, I think, a book where there's like a population crisis and women are forced to have children. And this is where their mind goes when they feel their health care rights, the fetus deletus rights, are being stripped from them. It's catastrophe, and it's all your fault. you conservative men. We don't doubt the power of technologically induced negative thinking in driving down liberal young women's spirits, especially because they use social media more than ever, more than their conservative female peers. As Twinge noted, but we think there is more to the story. Given that we are social animals, as Aristotle noted, we think different levels of social integration between liberal and conservative women also may have a hand in the happiness divide between the two groups. Yeah, if your best friend is your phone, you're going to be a little bit more off than people who actually have family, friends, church. As much as I will kind of rag on church for the way they treat men and the way they want you to be good little husbands and happy wife, happy life, the community of it, the social aspect of it can still be a positive thing in people's lives. There's no doubting that. It was much better a long time ago when the men actually led and you weren't as beat down as you are now when you're in the church, especially the Protestant churches. It's bad. One thinking here is indebted to the great French sociologist Émile Durkheim, who stressed the value of social integration into core social institutions for the emotional welfare of men and women. So we looked at how marriage, church-going, and loneliness help to account for the happiness gap of liberal and conservative women. Our results from the American Family Survey are striking. Conservative women ages 18 to 40 are married at rates that are 20% points than the liberal women in the same age group. Okay, hold on, that was written weird. Are striking. Conservative women ages 18 to 40 are married at rates that are 20 percentage points less than liberal women in the same age group. They left out the word less. And whereas over half of conservative women in this age group attend church weekly, only 12% of their liberal peers do. Together, these two factors account for about half the ideological gap among young women in a multivariate analysis of life satisfaction that included controls for factors like race, education, and income. Now, it's not just going to church. It's the worldview that a person will have that goes to church. So these are people who believe that we have a creator. These are people who at least have that ability to think outside themselves. They are not the center necessarily. I know, don't get that I'm saying that all church women are safe. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying is there's a bigger likelihood that they believe in something greater than them, that they are not the center of everything. Whereas on the left, they are. And that doesn't make you happy. That brings it down. When you serve other people and you're not the center of your world, you're going to be happier. And I think that is why the conservative women are happier. And because they're like that, because they're more like the things I'm saying, the men are more interested in them. And so the lefty girls have to cope and say, I won't date a conservative man. Well, that's good because they won't date you. What are we talking about here? It's like, I didn't want that anyway. That's what they're doing. I can always reduce it to something you would hear a third grader say. And it can be done very easily. And that ought to make people go, why is that so easy? Oh, okay. Where were we? We also looked at loneliness, which unfortunately has been on the rise for Americans. But we found that liberal women ages 18 to 40 are much more likely to report frequent feelings of loneliness. Nearly 1 in 3 reported feeling lonely a few times a week or more. Conservative women, on the other hand, are much less likely to report feeling lonely, with just 11% feeling lonely a few times a week or more. Unsurprisingly, loneliness is correlated with life satisfaction. When we include loneliness in our life satisfaction model, it diminished the effect of marriage and church attendance. Even still, marriage was a strong predictor of satisfaction. But you don't know when she might pull the rug, and it's not good if you sign a contract and one of them is benefited for leaving it. So that's the tricky thing, because I know a lot of you guys out there are like, well, I'd be happier if I were married, but I'd be way less happy if that was broken and I lost everything, including my kids. That's the risk the men face. But it's because of a leftist mindset that can sink into these more conservative women. So the point of all of this in our discussion is that it's the leftist thinking that leads women to loneliness and leads men to reject them. Because if they want to think that they can just take advantage of men, that men are there to serve them, that men are oppressive, they have privilege and all of that, men don't want to any part of it. So that's unfortunately where we are in society. The leftist women really teach us everything we need to know about where we are with women in general. When we control for education, race, age, and income, the 2024 American Family Survey data also indicate that liberal women ages 18 to 40 are over 3 times as likely to report frequent feelings of loneliness compared to their conservative peers. But a large part of this loneliness gap comes from different rates of marriage and church attendance, even seen in the table above. It's fine. You don't need a table. I'm saying it to you. Adding controls for marriage and church attendance, ideology becomes less important than marriage being the strongest predictor of feeling less lonely. Taken together, our analysis leads us to 3 conclusions. First, the ideological divide in emotional well-being between young liberal and conservative women endures. It's always been this way. The feminists from 100 years ago, 150 years ago, they were not as happy as the married women. That was why it took so long to get the ones who were married and traditional in their traditional roles as women, which they really were back then. That's why it was so hard to pull them to the other side. Because they were like, I'm happy being a mother, raising my children, and being a wife, trusting my husband, listening to my husband. It was really hard to convince them to go the other side. And those lefty women are still trying to convince us, as I will show you here in a minute. What do you think they use TikTok for? To try to, influence the rest of us. Misery loves company is basically it. And they want some company. And jealousy leads a lot of it too. Second, this ideological divide does not appear to be just a consequence of negative thinking. It also seems to flow from the fact that liberal young women are less likely to be integrated into core American institutions, specifically marriage and religion that lend meaning, direction and a sense of solidarity to women's lives. Yeah. Those things are the remnants of the patriarchy. So basically what it's saying is the closer the women are to accepting the patriarchy, which is just rule of the father by the father, right? The happier we are. Third, lower levels of marriage and church going among liberal women may also have a hand in their elevated reports of loneliness, which in turn diminishes their odds of being happy. The bottom line then is that any efforts to bridge this ideological gap in young women's emotional well-being will seemingly require not only a change in thinking, but also a renewal of young liberal women's connection to America's core institution, family, and faith. we've, as a society, been moving further and further away from that, and I don't see a change. But what I just want to point out is that the lefty women are the loneliness, and they say they're rejecting you. They're not. They're the ones that are being rejected. So let's listen to what more of them have to say. So, why is this woman so angry? If it's just, hey, I don't want to date conservative men, okay? But why are you so angry? Because I think they actually do. I think they want you to want them. And I think they know you don't. Because why else would you be so angry?
By now, everyone has seen or heard of the fact that conservative men are struggling in dating in this political climate. Here's a fun.
She messed up the internet. That's so funny. Oh, we're having trouble playing this video. Yeah, she's that angry. All right, we can try again.
By now, everyone has seen or heard of the fact that conservative men are struggling in dating in this political climate. Here's a fucking thought. Change your mind. Be open to changing your mind. It's not that deep. I know mommy and daddy will be very upset if you so much as open your mind even slightly, but it's okay. It's okay. So here's a couple of takes on this. Number one, there's a lot of girls stitching saying if that they see that a man is conservative on a dating app, it's a double right. And I have a one up on that. If I see if a man is a double C, I call it a double hit, a Christian conservative, fuck no, because that doesn't happen overnight. That goes to show me that you come from a long line of Christian nationalists who are on board with Project 2025. That's immediately what I jump to. That tells me it's not just you, it's me, because we would not get along. I would open my mouth and you'd be leaving the dining room table. It's all right. It's all right. We'll just move.
I think the only one she's getting along with is going to be a weak man who will never, ever disagree with her and let her be the boss of everything. And conservative men just are not going to do that. And you can call them, a schnazi or whatever you want to call them for that, but they're just not going to take your baloney, okay? And why are you so mad about that? Like, you women don't understand that you reveal yourselves. You reveal yourselves. The fact that you're so mad means you actually do want something about it. You want them to change. Why would you care? Why would you care this much? Jealous of what the women have that these conservative men actually want.
Move along. Number two, these men don't even know what they believe. They don't even know what they believe. I saw a quote the other day, can't even remember where I heard it, but it was someone saying that there's a difference between what you are taught and what you believe. And I find that through and through with these conservative men. These conservative men oftentimes have no idea what they even believe in, because I no longer argue with people on either far side of the aisle because they're just too far gone. So what I do is ask why. Why? What policies, what procedures, what evidence suggests that that was a good move have you found? That that's a good reason to do that. And they can never answer me. They can never answer me. Or the answer is solely lied and hating on the other side. So when you ask a conservative man about a policy and he talks about, well, fucking Joe Biden, fuck Joe Biden. I'm like, okay, yup. Joe Biden's a war criminal. Like, we get that. Like, he needs to be impeached. He doesn't even know where he is. He just Roombas around. We get it. But what will your side do to fix that? All of it. Always Hunter Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Hillary Clinton. Like, can we just fucking get over that? My God. Oh, and Obama, too. They love that. But if your political opinion doesn't lie in research and or you can't back it up, come correct, stand on business with your political opinion, and or it lies in hating the other side, your political opinion is null and void to me.
I'm sorry. It lies in hating the other side. Is this pot calling the kettle black, or the lack of self-awareness is staggering?
You literally, like, you don't even have a political opinion to me. You don't even get to have a political opinion. They're that political alliance because it is the alpha male thing to do. It is beta to be a liberal man. It is rooted in hating and control of women. And that is the only thing that they have to hold on to.
And there you have it. See what I mean? It's all about that. If you are conservative and you hold these traditional values, men are men, women are women, marriage is forever, this is the man's role, this is the woman's role, etc., you're evil. You can't believe any of that. And yeah, that's a weaker man. It just is. That's a man that needs the government to decide everything for him. That's a man that just obeys the government because the government said so. There are also a lot of church guys that do that too. You know, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, whatever. But the real conservative men, especially like the Gen Z guys that are coming up in the world, they're not having any of that. They've been told, you know, to be less, be less, be less. And they've been told that they are the bad guy over and over again, that they're just done with it. They don't care. They don't care what you're going to call them. They don't care what isms and obias you're going to call them, because they're going to forge their own path and they're going to do what's right. Not just because the government told them, but because it's right.
In that political alliance. Women are going to have political opinions. We're going to have strong ones. It's not the 1950s no longer, bruv. No longer. And I will not shut my mouth. I will never shut my mouth. And I will absolutely not shut my mouth for a man. We are out here begging men to take a look in the mirror. And they are not. And they will not. And this loneliness epidemic that your dick's not getting wet every other day is going to grow. Okay? It's only going to get worse because we are going to shut this shit down. We're going to shut these legs for further business. Okay? So you better get with it or get the fuck out, because you're going to get lonelier and lonelier as a product of your own design.
Other way around, Miss Ma'am. You are the one that is going to get lonelier and lonelier as a product of your own design. That's it. That's how it's going to be. You've rendered yourself unmarriageable, undateable, and it's ideologies like that run through pretty much all of us these days that make all of us kind of undateable and unmarriageable. Even if we seem safe at the time, you just don't know when you might have that type of an outburst all of a sudden. I've seen it happen. So, hope at least it was a little entertaining to watch these women just kind of freak out over something that is like supposedly something that they don't care about. They swipe away, and yet they have to come on to take. There are so many videos like this. There was a plethora of videos like this of just women talking about how they won't date a conservative man. And I'm like, they're not asking you out, okay? There's no point. They don't want to get yelled at. They don't really want to go be hated. They don't want to pay for a dinner where you're going to hate them the whole time. Oh, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. But, all right, you guys. Thank you for joining me on this one. A little bit of a more crazy TikToks, right? It's just no end. Oh, you guys, make sure you feed your souls. Protect your peace. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.